Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In this new tutorial section we are going to create a console application, and by using ADO.NET we'll make our application by database. Let's first create a new project. Here I choose console application.NET framework. Next, here I name it ADO.NET console, and I say create. Here what we are going to do that we'll create a database. We can create it from SQL Server Object Explorer. Here is also, but I just want to create in SQL Server Management Studio, because when we start writing our ADO.NET codes, I just want to compare it or whatever we do on SQL Server and how we do in Visual Studio. I just want to make like comparison. It will be easy to understand. So in this case, just we'll like make a registration for a person. We need like a name, surname, and then maybe age, maybe phone number. It will be enough, not something, it's just something very small. First I need to go to SQL Server Management Studio, and there we'll create our database and we'll fill with some values. So here I choose my developer as a server name, and I say connect. And from database, I right click on my databases. I say new database. And here we can say like student DB. This is our name of our database. I say OK. And now we come from tables. I right click here. I say new table. And first things first, I need a primary key as an ID, and I will make identification specification as a auto increment. So here first I will say like a student ID, and then a data type, it should be integer, and I right click here, I set as a primary key. This is our primary key. And then I come from properties. We have a identity specification. I set it yes. So what it will be, for example, if I add a new student, it will start 1. And if I add another student, and my ID will be 2 automatically, because when we try to delete, update, and through that ID, and when we select any of students, we'll always using that ID. And now we'll say, let's say here name, and I put n varchar 50. This n, it is for Unicode. It means that we can write all characters, including Chinese, all characters unknown. And char is only for character. Var, for example, I put here 50. If I use 20, then this it will only keep 20. Rest of 30 it will remove. So because we don't know, maybe some names it will be like 10 or 15 or maybe lesser, or maybe some of them maybe 25 characters. So that's why I just put 50. And that's for the second, we say surname and varchar 50, and then we say we'll put age, and here I just want to use bytes, because byte is called tiny int in SQL Server. This from 0 until 255, because the thing is that if we put int, because we don't need, because things is like more than 2 billions from, it starts from 0, but this one is like our average age range. It will be like is more suitable with tiny int. And now let's go to phone number. I can like this, and since phone number we only write like a digits, I will use char. And let's see, for phone number, let's see how many characters, including 0. Let's see, usually how many characters rest. 0, 5, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So totally 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's say 11 is quite sufficient. With the 0, 11 is more than enough. And now let's close this one. The moment we'll close, we have to name our table. I say yes, and I just put it as a student because I use plural, since we'll have a lot of students in data here. I just name it as a students. Say OK, and let's come our table. As you see that students is created. I right click here as edit top 200 rows. Here we can add input our values. So you see that for ID we don't write anything because we cannot write it automatically. It will start from 1 and increase 1 by 1. So let's say I write my name and write my surname, age, and let's say phone number, like randomly I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the first, and let's say David. I just randomly write 45, 1, 5, 2, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we can write another one. Let's say Robert Rose. And let's say 24, 3, 5, 7, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think 3 rows are sufficient because we'll be adding from the console application. Let's close this one. And as you know that we have done with the database, we can close this one now. And let's go to our Visual Studio. And now here what we are going to do, since we are going to use ADO.NET, we have to, for example, let's go SQL Server and see our database. This is StudentDB. So in ADO, I just want to create exactly same class. Now we are going to create a class named students, and we write exactly from our table this column as an entity. So I come here from Solution Explorer, I right click here, I say add, and here I choose class and I write students. Because this is like a singular, you know, we'll add only one student one by one, but this is the name of our table. The students, it is more than one student is containing. So I say add, and here access modifiers, I set it public, and first let's write integer, and it is first one, it was student ID, and the second one it was string name, and third one it was string surname, and then we had age, it was byte because tiny is byte in C#, and then lastly we'll say string and we'll say phone number. This is like this. Let's save it and close this one. And now when we use ADO.NET, we have to create, because I want to create a class, and I just want to put my old ADO.NET codes from there we'll be accessing. So I right click here, I say add a new class. This one I call it the student DAL because it is data access layer. I say students DAL. This DAL data access layer, I just name it like this because usually they name like this. So I say add. From access modified, I set it to public. And now, here in order to make connection between our console application and database, we use ADO.NET. So in order to use this one, we have to define our first SQL connection. For example, which kind of SQL and which database will be connected, we have to define here through the SQL connection. For example, let's first we open this SQL Server Management Studio. So when we open it, here we have SQL like a server name. I just copy this one. This is server name. And then here what we have it, we have like a database. It is like a database name. So that one we have to define inside SQL connection. So I will write SQL connection. I will call it connection, and I will create instance from it. And now here we have to write our connection string. So how we are going to do that? We can do like from here, from our student DB, we can click like from properties and write our SQL connection, like a copy and paste here, and we can write it by ourselves. Which one is suitable for you? Because it is, let me copy this one. I will just, as a comment, I will paste here. And let's remove this one. Yeah. For example, here first we write our data source. As you see that when we open this one, you remember it asks like a server name. So this data source, it is like a server name. So this is our server name, and we'll write like data source, and then we'll just copy this one and paste it. This is our data source. And second one, our database name, because after, for example, we connect our server, because we do the process with our database. For example, if you want to run a query, let's say from student DB, I write new query, and for example, I write select. I just want to like select all data from students. So you see that it is our table. So second one is our database name, and we'll say any initial catalog, and we'll say students DB. And the last one, there is integrated security. We can write, instead of this one, we can even write like trusted connection true. We can do like this also, it's the same, because this one we say like we don't need like a username and password, like we say whoever use this one can connect it, you know. So that's why we say, because for example here like we have authentication. For example, when we say SQL authentication, we have login and passwords. So in this case we say we don't have we don't have like a username and passwords, directly connect without username and passwords. So then we write integrated security is true. That's that much simple. So once we have done this one, let's first we'll create a method, and that method will check our connection, because when we try to connect this one, the moment we start connect, this connect we open our connection, and if you want to close it, for example, we'll like a disconnect. So on and off. So it is the same thing with like ADO.NET, also the same logic. Here I will say private and void, and I will just name it check connection. And here we will just check it. If our connection is closed, then we'll open it. That's it. And here we'll say connection state, because here like we check a connection state if it is open and closed, and I will say equal close. If our I choose this enumeration. If our connection is closed, then what we are going to do, we'll just open our connection. Open. That's much simple. So we have done this one. Let's first call it from console, and we'll just check it, our connection, is it successfully working or not. Here just I will in order to keep our console, I have to write console read line, and let's create instance from our student DAL, data access layer, and here I just set it private because I cannot access this one. I will just make it public, and now let's call student DAL check connection, and here I will give our message, because if execute this this line, then it means that the connection was closed and it opened already. Then this is functioning, and we'll just say connection is opened. Let's run it, how it is functioning. As you see, connection is open. Then it is functioning successfully. So let's remove this one and this one as well. Now we check our SQL connection, everything is functioning properly. Here what we are going to do, we want to make like a select. For example, when we call our like a list, select list as a students, we want to get all our data. So here what I'm going to do, I will say public, and I can set this one again private because I don't want to access from console application. I say public list of what? List of students. And then I will say get all. I just name it like this. Get all, it means it will get all our students, you know, as a list. Then from console we will iterate. We'll just for each I will show you all the data. So here before I start this one, I make sure that our connection is open. I will just call my method. I will say check connection. Here it will check. If it is closed, it will open it. This is first. Secondly, we'll create we'll create SQL command. I will just tell what is it. This SQL command, this is class SQL command. So what is this SQL command? Let me first write the code. I will explain in more detail. You say select from students, and after this one I have to give my connection, SQL connection, because this command will use which connection? This one. Then I will pass through my connection, because as you see I ask for connection. So what this SQL command does, for example, if we go to our SQL Server Management Studio, here this SQL command exactly does this one. For example, when the moment I click execute, so it brings me the table. So this SQL command basically exactly this one, whatever we do inside our query. So after this one, now we need SQL reader. I will tell for what we need SQL data reader, and we'll say reader, and I will say commands execute reader. So what does this does? For example, if we go to SQL Server Management Studio, when we select this call, we say execute, this execute and this execute the same thing. When we execute it, we have a table. So basically what we do here, let me show all this table we just assign to our reader. Now all these tables inside our reader. So then from while loop will create a list as a student list, and will assign all our this students table inside our list students. We'll assign it. So let's do this one. First I have to declare list students, and here I will write students, new list students, and now I will create a while loop, and here I will say reader dot read. So what is this? For example, here when we execute this one, first it brings, for example, it checks one line, second line, it brings all of them. So this one basically from our reader, let me do like this. We say we assign this one inside our reader, right? So then we will just from while loop we'll read all these things from our reader. Each time, first it will just from first row, it will read it, this one. If it is true, then it will go, if it is done with this first one, then the second, then third. If it is not, it will not read. It will finish, then it will just break this while loop. So now we go here, and now here we'll declare a student. I'll do single students. So now here we will read from our reader. Each student will just assign inside these students, and then we'll add inside our list, and then we'll return it. Here first I will say student ID, and from our reader we say student ID. The thing is that this student's ID is integer, and this one it is object. We have to convert this one into integer. We'll say convert to int32. This is the first. And second one, we have a name. we say reader and this name, and we say this is like object, we have to convert to string, and we say to string. And now let's for the surname, to string, and let's for the age, it is also it is byte, we have to convert to into byte, we say convert to byte, and then lastly our phone number, we say reader phone number, then to string. Yeah. After this one, after each from reader, read for example first row, then it is now our first row inside our students, we have to add inside our student list. We will say students add and student. So after this one, we have to close our SQL data reader. We say reader close, and then we will close our connection. We will say connection close, and then lastly we'll return our students. Say return students. This is how we list our students, and this is that much I think is simple. As you see that what we did, for example here, first we declare our SQL connection, then we'll check our connection, we open it if it is closed, then SQL command we say like equal, it is exactly like this one. 1 minute, sorry. So then the moment when we click execute, we have a table, exactly this command execute reader does the same, it just bring a table, and then this is our table, we just assign our table inside a reader. So now all this information now inside our reader. So we create a student list, and then from the list we just read inside our reader, and we just assign all our reader inside our students, and then we return it. This is simply like this.